Hello and welcome to The Push. My name is Nick Bonanno. I am a producer and the senior official for the United Wrestling Network. And this evening, we'd like to present to you a look into Ray Rosas. So first, my host, or my co-host right now, from CW30, on CW30, Championship Wrestling presented by Pro Shingle, is Dustin Starr.
Hey, Nick. How are you, man?
Dustin?
I'm doing awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me back this week. And I'm really looking forward to talking to Ray Rosas tonight.
I was hoping that you would say that because we had a lot of fans online asking who might be the person to talk to Ray, and I think you're the perfect individual for the job.
Oh, boy. I can't wait to see what the live chat looks like.
Yeah, I'm sure he jumped on the opportunity real fast.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Ray Rosas, probably one of the most decorated men in the United Wrestling Network. Multi-time tag champion, United Wrestling Network television champion, and right now he holds both the Arizona State Championship and the 2020 PP3 Cup. So, thank you for being here, Ray.
Oh, thank you for having me, and you're welcome for me being here too.
Yeah. Thank you. Every time I've written your name down today, I've written it with a bunch of R's on the Rosas. I haven't heard it much recently, but for the longest time, I feel like every time someone said your name, it was always Ray Rosas. Where did that come from?
It's actually one of my trainers. He was an Angel Exotico. He wrestled for the old XPW, and he helped a lot of us come up with our characters and trademarks, quirks like that. So whenever he was helping me with my do my interviews and my promos, he was always like, "You should be Ray Rosas, and you should always try to roll that R as long as you can, and try to do it longer each and every single time." And it was one of those things that immediately got caught fire pretty early on. I've kind of moved on from it, but anytime I step into a new territory, that's the first thing I always try to do is reestablish that Rosa.
You had mentioned, that brings up my next question, I guess. You'd mentioned in the video that you had to find ways to make yourself stand out as a performer, and there's different ways to do that. Would you say that, making that sound, that would be one of the ways to get into people's heads, a little bit of an earworm there?
Yeah, I wanted people to remember me. You go out there and you'd be given a certain amount of time to perform, and you have to leave an impression on people very quickly. They're going to decide if they like you or don't like you pretty fast. And then you have a very limited amount of time to change their mind if they do or they don't. But as long as they remember you, as long as they end up leaving the show or the arena or wherever you're performing, and they go, you know what, that Ray Rosas, he was something else. And then they come back and they nudge their friend and they go, hey, that's the guy I was telling you about. And then it just sparks like wildfire, just spreads, and then it helps out. So it's like, hey, look at that. That's the guy with the goofy hair. He had a top knot last time we saw him. Hey, last time he had the pork chop sideburns. Oh man, you're gonna like this guy. He's pretty funny. So I've always was, at least that's the mindset that I had when I first started out there. Is I can go out there and wrestle, but I want to make sure that they remember the Ray Rosas character, and left, and then come back and remembered him again.
Yeah, if I could jump in real quick, the Ray Rosas character has absolutely developed, especially over the last 13, 14 months. Being here in Memphis, Tennessee, Ray, we talk about you each and every week on the program. Sometimes good, and most of the times bad. But even with the history that we have, I'll be as professional as I can be here because honestly, yeah, please. But you went from having like one of the longest losing streaks that we've ever seen to where you were going to retire in the middle of the ring. You were literally taking your boots off. And then all of a sudden, literally, you're like the hottest guy in the company. Not only the Arizona State champion, you're the PP3 cup bearer, whether you stole that cup or not. Either way, you guys are loaded. You're the leader of the group that has literally all the championship belts except for the Heritage title. So how has that transition happened from one end of the spectrum to the other, talking about character development?
Well, you get the people to like you, and that's just with a can-do attitude. You work for those people to entertain. Then to flip it, you have to do everything that you take everything they like about you, and you don't do it anymore. You stop. You just no, that's not the response I want anymore. I don't need the the fans' approval. I don't need them to like me. I don't need them to cheer me anymore. What I need is results. And I've always been a firm believer that, sometimes the change, it starts right here. It starts here. You have to make it. And once I wasn't getting what I wanted, working a certain way or doing things a certain way, I had to change. I had to stop and start doing things completely different. A fresh start, clean slate. And I went back to the drawing board, changed up the attitude, find some like-minded individuals, because for the longest time, if it wasn't Peter, I was working alone. Peter, if it was either Peter Avalon or Ray Rosas by himself. So once I learned that, strength in numbers, you find some like-minded individuals, some victims of the system, and next thing you know, you're running everything. You take no for an answer. You don't take no for an answer. Keep pushing.
You're definitely on a streak leading up to the pandemic. I mean, you even went as far as saying that you are coming after the Heritage title and you will get it. Now, since that time, it's been a couple of months since we've seen anybody inside the ring in front of a live crowd. How does that plan look as we come back? Like, how do you stage that as far as we don't know when, where, how, or anything like that?
Well, that's actually to my advantage, I think, because people aren't going to know when or where, and I've had plenty of time to plan now, sit here and think and stew over it for many, many nights. And to call my shot against the Hollywood Heritage Championship. I mean, it's multi-layered more than just that, because it's the one title that's eluded me since I've been in the United Wrestling Network.
Yeah.
The one title I felt that's been kind of kept from me. I've never had an opportunity against it, at least a fair one. Probably, but nothing that I can remember. Maybe not. Like I said, not a fair one.
Wait a second. You had a shot at the Heritage title against Watts in Arizona not too long ago.
Hey, whoa. That was an impromptu match. I had no time to prepare for that.
Come on.
And you'd already wrestled at that point too, though, right?
Yeah, I already wrestled that night, and Watts' opponent couldn't make it to the arena that day, and they needed a guy, and I was that guy, and I was already fatigued, already pretty under, wasn't going into the match 100%. I don't like to say that I go in unprepared, but I wasn't ready for that one. And Watts to take on someone the size of Watts, you have to go in. You have to pack a lunch. You have to commit a whole week to prepare for someone like Watts.
I'm sorry, Ray. I was gonna say shout out to everybody real quick in the live chat. We've got 5-star fan cam here. Says, "Hey Ray, we care." So he cares. Jeremy says, "Why, Ray? Why? How could you betray EJ Sparks like that?" So we've got some comments going on here. They're all over you, man.
Well, I'll talk about EJ in a moment, but because the point I wanted to get to was the Heritage Championship and how multi-layered that was, because Watts is a factor into this. Watts was a person that beat me in one punch when I was at my lowest. And if anything, knocked over that first domino that knocked the rest of the stack down that brought me here. And going on and defeating Watts and taking the Heritage Championship from him would be a full circle moment for me to right all the wrongs that started with him. Now, when it goes to EJ Sparks, now this is a kid that, I've been in the ring with. We've taken each other to the limit. And I've known what kind of stuff it would need to be done to take him down, and it wouldn't require, and that me to do that stuff wouldn't be me being a very nice guy, now would it? And I had to do it.
When you worried
I needed the results.
When you ever worried about being a nice guy, Ray?
See, I stopped worrying about that, and look what happened. Became the Arizona State champion.
We were talking about the character development and the move from your losing streak all the way to the PP3 Cup. But right in the mix of that, like, by pulling the curtain back a little bit, social media and your personal life and everything, and it was in the video, The Push, that aired this week, which was tremendous. If the people are watching and have not seen that video, you have to go take a look at that video of Ray Rosas. But there was a legit retirement plan.
There was.
Where are we in the retirement plan?
Well, postponed, if not full on, just canceled. I think my wife was the one telling me. my wife was telling me that she's like, that said no one's ever going to believe you anything, because you were telling everybody for months you were going to retire, and then you you didn't do it, so like you have no follow through anymore. If I do cancel, if and when I do retire, I probably won't tell anybody. You'll just stop seeing me on TV and stop seeing me at shows. I'll just kind of fade away into the ether that is retirement of professional wrestling. But I'm glad. I'm kind of glad I didn't retire, because I kind of still feel like I have a lot left in the tank now that I have this time to clear my head.
Of course. Jeremy McPeak asks, he says, you and EJ were scheduled for a last man standing match at the Grand Canyon Clash, which has been postponed. Do you have a favorite last man standing match that you've seen and you might borrow from, draw inspiration from, or tactics whenever that event will be rescheduled?
I've always enjoyed the Shawn Michaels Triple H last man standing match at Royal Rumble 2004, I think it was. It was very, very, very brutal, very violent, and I was prepared to go to those levels to beat EJ and retain the title, because I don't think people are aware of the type of mean streak that I really have, the hardcore background that I have. I've been in death matches. I've been in bloody cage matches. I've been in tons of ladder matches. I've dealt and been dealt tons of brutality and violence and pain. And I would have liked to have gone to that match and shown EJ firsthand, what kind of brutality I'm capable of, and to kind of poke and see what he would have had. I was kind of curious to see what he was willing to do to keep me down for 10 seconds. And that's not an easy feat.
I think you mentioned your history with death matches, or different styles of matches that you've been in, and how that maybe has conditioned you to expect violence. I wonder if EJ has an advantage, the fact that he lives out in Arizona in that desert climate, that the longer the show gets postponed, the hotter it's going to be in that building. Do you see it as an advantage for him or a disadvantage for you, that he might be more capable in a hot environment?
That's actually a pretty good point. It's like going into Colorado to play the Denver Broncos in the Mile High Stadium, and they have much more conditioning because the air is a little thinner. So same. I would probably prepare by doing more hot yoga, preparing by being outside a little more, training a little more. Being here in Southern California, it's still pretty hot out here. It gets pretty hot out here, and some of the training facilities, all you gotta do is be training in the ring, turn off the air conditioning, and you get a pretty good sweat. So I think the heat play would play a small factor, because the Nile Theater, in the middle of summer, that place turns into a desert. But I think he would have a slight advantage. But the thing that I will always have over EJ is experience, and I know how to use it.
That's true. How long have you been wrestling now? I know it's been a long time.
I'm gonna go just a little over 10 years.
Oh, okay. Now, here we've been talking, just sitting here. It's funny to me. I'm thinking, man, Watts, you've upset him. You've upset Jordan Clearwater, EJ Sparks. You and I have had our run in at the Red Carpet Rumble, and we've got a score to settle. And then my boy here, Anthony Idol, is in the chat. Of course, you had that finish to that match, and what you did to the referee to cause that disqualification was.
We got to talk about this.
I'd never seen that before in my life, but you're literally pissing everybody off, just so you know, right, Ray?
Well, when you're going to go to the top, you're going to make a few enemies.
I guess.
It's something I was expecting to happen. They're not all going to be friends.
Tell us about that finish, right, Nick?
Man.
You're referee, you're the head senior official. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I can't say that I have, and it's like there's no instant replay rule in wrestling, at least not in the United Wrestling Network. And so you have to call what you see. And what I saw was Anthony Idol's leg hit me in the crotch, and I felt it as well.
You were there.
That was something that I sat on for years. That was a finish that I had in my head. I saw it. I've seen it. I saw it on a Lucha Libre company, and it was Negro Casas that did it. I'll admit it right now that I took inspiration from that finish from Negro Casas. But I saw that years and years ago, and I sat on it because it was not something I wanted to waste on just some any random show. Mm-hmm. And and it was years and years and years, and I'd never seen it happen, but I always sat on it and like, okay, when I bust this out, it's going to be a big deal, you know. And as we're getting deeper and deeper into the PP3 Cup tournament, I know for the sake of myself and my character, I can't win by pinning anybody. Like I feel like, you know, it would help so much more the character to win in the most worst, despicable fashion that I could think of, and to win the tournament by disqualification at the very end. Oh,
I don't
man,
think I've ever seen a tournament that way, like any tournament. So
yeah, but you know what? Also, the finish, and here I am singing your praises. Forgive me, but the finish was so unique that I don't know. A typical disqualification finish in the finals of a tournament like that is like a championship match. It's like, wait, that's what happened. But in this sense, it was so unique. We'd never seen it before. That was like, wow, that's how it ended. Mm-hmm. You know, that's very nicely done. Cheap.
Yeah. Cheap but nicely done, and I think it works very well for
Nick.
Smart. What's that?
But that's something that works for me. That's something that benefited, I think, everybody involved in that match. You know, everybody's, and again, it's people are going to remember that for a long time because of that finish.
Yeah, and just peeking here in the chat real quick, Nick. Hello to Steve watching. I know he's in the Mississippi area. Anthony Idol is on here. John says that you deserve a solid shot at the Hollywood Heritage Championship. You are the face of CWFH, says John. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I don't really care what he says, but I kind of like what he says. So I'm feeling very conflicted. But I do deserve a solid shot at that. But I mean, let's say I don't get a solid shot, and then, you know, maybe I don't win, maybe I do. But then I have the PP3 Cup to just do another match right after. That's
pretty. Like, last year with the TV
yeah, title. I have a solid. Like, you know, it's a lot of strategy, a lot of time sitting here thinking about it.
Now, part of the push video, you talk about opportunity and not necessarily getting put in the best position for opportunity. What exactly do you mean by that? Because with your long run and having won nearly almost every championship, that kind of, for me and some of the fans, just feels like, you know, that's hard to believe.
I guess it's just the expectations of that those fans have and that I have. You know, maybe what I've already gotten is not good enough for me. I want more. You know, championships are good. Championships are great. You know, that equals more. I guess it equals more TV time and more money. But it all comes down to just having more respect from everybody that watches, everybody that competes. You know, we have a lot of great big, you know, stars and names that come through the United Wrestling Network, and when they do, Ray Rosas gets pushed down the ladder just a little bit. You know, I want to be on the same level as these people. I want to be seen as like Ray Rosas and Nick Aldis, Ray Rosas and James Storm. Like, you know, these are guys that are just in the same league. But when it's Nick Aldis and it's James Storm, and then, you know, there's Ray Rosas right here. That's what I mean when I'm not being presented in the way that I deserve to be. I deserve to be on the top with those guys, especially when they come through my show, through my network. This person, this fan, John Boone, he said I'm the face of CWFH. Well, I'm not. I don't feel like the face. Sometimes I feel like the foot in the very bottom. But sometimes the foot kicks a little ass. That's what I got to do sometimes. That's what I do all the time now. Do it.
You mentioned a couple of the stars of the National Wrestling Alliance just now with Aldis and Storm. Now, at last year's Grand Canyon Clash, the main event of the entire evening was you and Willie Mack for the NWA National Championship.
That's right.
Would you consider that to be one of those types of levels that you're trying to get to, or that you feel that you deserve to be on, or is that something completely different?
I mean, that match with Willie was pretty special because, I did kind of feel that I was breaking through the barrier a little bit. You know, I've wrestled Willie tons of times. I love wrestling Willie. He knocks me out at least 3 times a match, but I love wrestling Willie.
He hits you real hard off a knee or something, and we were like, "Ooh!" Man.
It's when I get hit like that, I always hope that I'm bleeding, because then it would be worth it. You know, you know, it's like, God, I hope I'm bleeding, because then I can get a really good shot of this, and it'd be really worth all that pain that I'm going through right now. I think I was a little bit. I think I had a little abrasions here, and I was bleeding a little bit. But that match with Willie, like, I really took it. I took it very serious. I take every match really seriously, but that particular match I took very seriously, because it was a big time opportunity to show a wider audience, so people outside of the United Wrestling Network, now fans also of the National Wrestling Alliance, what Ray Rosas is capable of, what Ray Rosas can do, the fighting spirit that Ray Rosas has going against the monster that is Willie Mack. You know, and I took it very seriously, and I was really trying to showcase that I could stand up and hold my own against somebody like that, and I think I did.
Who molded Ray Rosas? Like, who's your favorites growing up? Who did you watch? Like, me being from Memphis, it was all the classic Memphis guys. We had that here in Memphis. Where did you grow up, and what did you grow up on?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. I'm a SoCal boy through and through. But like a lot, I mean, I was a kid, and you know, growing up watching wrestling during the Monday Night Wars. Mm-hmm. So you had like all kinds of the greats in WCW, the cruiserweight division. So you had like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero. You know, you had Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Steve Austin. All those guys that were really, you know, influential to my career. I think Jericho was, you know, ingrained a lot in me, especially in my early part of my career when I had like the similar tights and the hairstyle and everything else. But Eddie Guerrero, you know, Kurt Angle was one of my faves. Booker T, those guys are real smaller, the workhorse guys. You know, they weren't the biggest, and I wasn't very big. I'm still not very big, but you know, having to acclimate, like, that's the style I have to kind of emulate, because that's what worked for them, and hopefully it'll work for me. Over time, I was able to evolve it and work still change the style just a little bit. I'm not very agile. You know, so I can't do any 450s or you know, stuff like that. I think the flashiest thing I could do is a moonsault. But I learned how and when to use those types of moves as years go on. You know, it's like, okay, I can't do a flashy flip, but I can do this, and if I maximize it, it can get a huge reaction. I think one of my most favorite moves, and one of the moves that is probably most over, is my top rope elbow drop. I love doing that move, and it's such an easy, basic top rope maneuver that nobody really cares that it's just a regular, basic elbow drop. But it's just the pomp and circumstances thrown onto it, just to, you know, to hit it, and it's just a slight variation in how I hit it. But I treat it like it's a, you know, big move, and my opponents, they treat it like it's a big move, so the fans are able to, you know, buy into that.
Of course. I see that Bob Koenig, who represents Halston Body for the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Arizona shows, says, well, hello. This actually leads me to questions for sort of both of you. How do you interact with managers during your matches, and how have you had a manager, Ray, or you know, what impact does that have on the way that you put your stories together?
I know I don't think I've ever had a manager. At least if I did, then I would remember right away. They can be useful, but I've been in matches where we had to use managers, and the whole match centered around how to use the managers, and I wasn't quite used to implementing them or how to utilize them correctly. Because again, I don't know. It's the same as like having being a tag team wrestler. If you're a singles wrestler and then thrown into a tag team and told to wrestle a certain tag style, it may seem a little foreign. Especially, you know, like if you're a tag specialist having to wrestle, you know, purely singles matches. But I can't. I guess you would have to utilize a manager the same way you would utilize a referee. Like they need to be there when they need to be and not be there when they shouldn't be. You know, like they're invisible and letting the match tell a story, and then they only need to be there to enhance and help the guys in the ring. What do you think?
I think that's a perfect segue to my Maria comes to the ring with me, and just like you say, they add a lot to the mix, and having her at ringside definitely is a benefit. I mean, you know this, having Adrian Quest and Andy Brown around you, but then also that gave you the opportunity in the red carpet rumble to grab her, distract me, thus eliminating me, which is cool. Like if it's a battle royal, especially the red carpet rumble with the heritage title on the line, that's all fine and dandy to eliminate me. That's cool. But putting your hands on my wife is where I had the problem. And so that's where the problem comes in.
It's a double-edged sword, man.
And it just sweetens that revenge, because you know this, we have a date. We don't have a date. We've got a contract with a blank date, because you were coming to Memphis. Tell me about that. What about Memphis? What do you think of the classic history of Memphis?
I was really something I actually cared about, believe it or not. I was really excited to go over there in Memphis and, you know, stomp around at Graceland for a little bit and to take a look around at some history around there. You know, I was really bummed when that got canceled because of everything. Of course, for safety and everything else that was going on, and there's bigger things in the world that are happening that, you know, that puts a lot of that in perspective. But, you know, on a personal level, that really did bum me out, because I was going to go there and be a part of history, just like all and because all the long line of pro wrestling history in Memphis, and be a part of it. It was a big time bummer. Yeah,
it was for me too. And that show will still happen at some point. We're just still not at the end of that unknown tunnel at this point. But there's a lot of Memphis wrestling fans here, Memphis Grizzlies fans. Maria and myself working to a lot of the sports ventures here. And a lot of those people want to see us punch and slap you in the face, man. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you.
I'm sure they do.
Great. It was going to be great, man. It still will be. But you know what I mean? it fires people up when you hit those personal nerves. And I can't wait, you know, on a professional level as well, because when I look at it, I look at it like Ray Rosas right now is the top guy in championship wrestling, because of the group, because of all the championships. You've got an opportunity anytime you want. John Boone put a foot on the screen for you, since you're the foot of championship wrestling.
That's going to be with me for a long time now. That foot.
Lamb here in the chat, mentoring him last year, facing him at the year of the PP3. How does it feel to face Jordan Clearwater in a high-profile match nearly 1 year after the breakup? And that's a good thing about storytelling with the United Wrestling Network. You're not going to get it just like that. There's going to be a story just like your story that's going to stretch out over the course of several months. People are waiting for it.
Well, I mean, I think one of the best lessons I gave Jordan was to not really trust anybody. You know, I had to learn that the hard way too. When Peter Avalon turned on me when I made my return to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So I was even though I stopped mentoring him, I was still teaching him. And when we had the whole high-profile match, when we clashed in the semifinals of the PP3 Cup, you know, gave him another lesson. Like you let your anger get the best of you. All you saw was just red and came right at me, and you didn't have a chance to think. And you know, hope he still got a good lesson out of that defeat. You know, he's a good kid. He's got a lot of potential, and his time will come, but just not right now, because it's Ray Rosas' time. That's a lesson a free lesson for you there, Jordan, if you're listening.
Kelby is in the chat saying hello. Says Grandma says she loves you.
Oh, his grandma or my grandma?
I have no idea. It's just in the chat here.
Hey, Kelby. I have like how many signs is he gonna have me sign next time I see him at Arizona?
What have you been during the lockdown? Was the question that came in there.
Well, I've been catching up on my video game playing. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone.
I'm a Fortnite guy myself.
Yeah, I couldn't get into Fortnite.
It's tough.
My kids play that. I've been spending a lot more time with my kids. They're getting sick of me really fast. Because they're home too from the school, so they all see me all here all day. You know, just making plans, getting ready to go. You know, once the you know, everything's back to normal in terms of us running shows and being able to train. I've been setting up some new workout regimens, new workout plans, and new training materials for everybody that I train and work with, and just trying to stay in shape, because you know how easy it is to just fall off the workout wagon here.
For sure.
Question coming in from the United Wrestling Network page. Ray, if you could wrestle anyone in the world today, or anyone from wrestling history, who would you be, or who would it be?
Anyone in wrestling history? That's such a wow. That's a huge question. It's kind of hard to throw. It's probably a question that's asked so many times. You should just have the answer in your head already. I was thinking about the other day, who's left for me to conquer, so to speak. But if it could be anybody in history, oh man, I think I'd want to wrestle someone like 1998 Shawn Michaels. 98 Shawn Michaels, where he was kind of selfish. See what kind of work he would want to put in with me, and he was like, oh, I got to go in there work with this kid. There's not even my level, and then have him go in there have a great match with me, even though he probably didn't like me. It's much different. Shawn Michaels, but much different. Shawn Michaels in the 2003, 2004 Shawn Michaels.
Sure, yeah.
But the 98 Michaels, the angry one. I think that'd be a good one. But if it's someone modern, I'd probably say someone like Adam Cole. I've crossed paths with him many times here, but
I was wondering, if you had.
Yeah, we've been on a few shows together. But we never locked up, and there's always somebody's like, dang, he's so good, and I wish it's one of the few people I'll admit, like, dang, he's good, he's got it. But someone that would definitely love to wrestle.
Brian asks, Ray Rosas, will the Rams go back to the Super Bowl?
Of course they will. Of course they will. He's like, what kind of question is that?
I see you sporting the new gear. I've seen you've ordered the hat and the whole 9 yards and everything. I'm a Dolphins fan, so it's been brutal for me for my life.
Sorry.
Yeah, my whole life has been brutal with football. Yeah.
Hey, the early 90s were okay, right?
Dan Marino, Dan the man. Haven't had anybody since then. But look at the Rams, man, moving from St. Louis to L.A. and just like killing it. I don't know what's going on over there.
Yeah, I grew up. I was raised a Oakland Raiders fan.
Okay.
Of course, I think like half the people in here probably were. But I remember the very first football game that I went to when I was a young kid. It was an L.A. Rams versus L.A. Raiders. So technically, I've always been a Rams fan since before they came back to L.A. It's one point I like to put out there.
Bridging it back to wrestling, you told me not too long ago, Ray, about a match that was like football rules that you were involved in. Can you describe that? Because I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that works.
Man, it was a 5-on-5 tag match. Okay, and it was under football rules, so it had 15-minute quarters and then a 15-minute break between the first and second, between like actual halftime.
Okay.
It was called like National Wrestling League, and it partnered with the Empire Wrestling Federation, and they only ran like two shows of that particular concept. But yeah, like it was 5-on-5, or like a full hour of wrestling, but split into 15-minute quarters with a halftime, and then like a pinfall would count for 7 points, like a disqualification or a count out counted for like 3, and then if you did like it was so bizarre, and I don't remember who was on my side. I know that Scorpio Sky was on my team in that particular match, and he was having to how could you plan that? How do you plan to have that style of match with 10 people, hour long? So we were relaying the calls through our referee back and forth between the two sides of the teams, and just kind of like, okay, this is what we have. Like, hey, tell them to go in and do this, and come in and feed in for that, and it was so bizarre. Like, I might have to bring it back just because I haven't seen something like that happen in so long. But it was bizarre. Like I said, it's only been like 2 shows with that match, with that type of match. Never, it hasn't happened, and that was back in like 2010, 2011. But the football rules match.
Yeah. And staying on the topic of wrestling, last week on Championship Wrestling presented by Pro Shingle, we did somewhat of a dive into the formation of the group known as Static. So that's you, Andy Brown, and Adrian Quest. How did you guys come up with the name Static, and what made you recruit those 2 guys instead of, you had your pick from anybody, you picked those guys? What's up with it?
Well, Andy's been a longtime protege of mine. He was one of the first people that I started like mentor many years ago. When he came into Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I was like one of the first people to pull him aside and show him the ropes, so because he was a great wrestler, but learning how to wrestle on the TV is different. You know, there's a different style, different beats you got to hit. And I remember pulling him aside and like say, okay, you come here to the top of the stage, give it a beat. Come here to the bottom of the stage, give it a beat. Get your pose, get your TV time. Always work those cameras, and you know, I always felt like I had really good chemistry with Andy. Now the thing with me and with Peter, like if to backtrack to Peter and I had tremendous chemistry as opponents. And I think that helped us be a better tag team. It helped our chemistry as a tag team. So it kind of had the similar effect with me and Andy. We were great as opponents, and then when we started teaming together, we were just like, okay, we're very like-minded. We see wrestling this kind of the same way. We see how it works. We see the ebb and flow. So it's gelled together, and we have someone that's one of the best pure strikers in the United Wrestling Network. You know, aside from Bateman. Of course you want that person on your side, someone that trusts you and someone that you can trust. That's probably rule number one. With Adrian, you know, he's a kid that I wrestled when he was 13 years old.
Wow.
You know, 10 years ago, someone that I've watched grow up in this business and it had a keen eye, and someone that was at a young age was just getting it. Someone that's going to go surpass anything that I can probably accomplish by the time he reaches my age. Mm-hmm. That's somebody that I want to keep in my camp and mentor, especially, and don't even, and that's just, can't forget the fact that Andy and Adrian had this connection where they were a tag team for a long time.
Sure. And
just so everything kind of clicked together. Now Bateman was somebody that I wanted, but he went on and did something, did his own thing. He wasn't gonna, and he probably wouldn't have been into the whole team thing anyway, but he would have been a heavy hitter to have on Static. Now, when it came to the name, it was actually something that Yuma had mentioned to us, because he was kind of a supporter of us in the sense that he's like look, you guys just it's something that I always confided in him. It's like, man, especially for me, it's like I've been spinning my wheels. I've been sitting here and I haven't done anything. I'm tired of being stuck here. And he's just like, we've just been static. You've been static, and you haven't, that was it.
Yeah. The moment that we heard it the first time was I can't even remember. I think I reached out to the office and said, "Is this the official name?" And they were like, "Well, that's what they're calling themselves." And so I'm like, "Okay, this team that calls themselves Static." But that's a good story on the backstory of how that name came about. I like it.
Yeah, and when we pretty much interrupt the scheduled program of Championship Wrestling, and we make Static. Interrupt the program, start our own show.
Little fun fact about the Static entrance video: it's usually just static on the screen. We used to have a more pronounced static sound that went with it, but one of our stations called and said, "Hey, I think there's something wrong with your audio we're getting," and so we changed it to be a little bit more muted. So when we return, I think we'll have you guys can bring a track in. Maybe Adrian will work on something so you can have something.
I know. I loved that. I love that it was just static. It reminded me of Right to Censor when they were just that alarm noise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, I'm like, that was one of the things I really liked and wanted. But yeah, I didn't know that was it though. I didn't know that's why they took it away.
Yeah, it's been dampened a little bit, but that was the thing that I found super interesting because it was so. It's something that really sticks in your head, like that, like for that. You had mentioned before the chemistry that you had with Peter had made for both a great tag team and opponents, and you mentioned the same thing with Adrian and Andy Brown, and that they were a longtime tag team. But also, fans might remember last summer they had probably the best championship match of the entire United Wrestling Network. They wrestled for the Hollywood Heritage Championship. They went 3 segments and just really tore the house down. So having that understanding and chemistry makes a ton of sense for why you'd have them together as a unit with you, Static. I think another thing I wanted to say before, and I forgot, when we were talking about involvement with managers, I think you, Ray, are actually, when you are a manager for Static, you're one of the most effective ones that we have on the program because you help advance the match story. That's a pet peeve of mine, having a manager at ringside, is that they don't, you said you're waiting to get their spot in, but that doesn't necessarily add to anything. So I think that I appreciate of you, even if it's underhanded or whatever, is that it does help get your guys further, and it's not for no reason. So
and it's probably something that I'm doing subconsciously, because I don't even realize that I'm doing anything really. I just want I don't I guess I doesn't make sense for me just to be stand there and not do anything, but it's like also helping me advance the match. I don't. It's funny because I said I don't. I always feel really awkward. I'm standing out there and not wrestling. I'm standing at ringside, just going, "Oh, what should I be doing?" So I always try to like think of like Paul Heyman. Like, what would Paul Heyman do? Like, what's he like? So one of those things like, okay, now when you're watching Brock Lesnar matches, like now I got to pay attention to what Paul's doing, not what Brock's doing. Not pay attention to the match. So how is Paul reacting to what's going on when Brock's winning, and how is he reacting when Brock's losing, and everything in between. So that's kind of how I guess I have, at least the mindset that I have is like, okay, what am I doing when I'm standing here, when I'm in default like a video game player and I'm not moving, what how do I advance this match to help these guys out without taking too much attention away? How much I love attention.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot with Jordan Clearwater as well, as you were on the floor and this thing was transitioning and you were slowly but surely making that turn. And then, like Nick said, I see you somewhat of as a managerial role in that spot as well when you come to the ring, and there's always something going on with you guys. And that's one of the coolest things. We call it the fastest hour in professional wrestling here in Memphis, just because it goes by so fast. There are so many matches all crammed into the hour. There's so many interviews, and something always is some sort of surprise, whether it's you guys pulling some kind of tricks or whatever the case may be. So it's always something, but definitely adding a lot to the shows.
We try to add variety. We try to be different. If you're watching an hour and then you notice, if we're doing something right then, right? If we're watching us and an hour just flies by because you're just so invested in what's going on, and you're like, oh man. And as long as we keep the people, coming back the following week to watch more and watch us again, and I think we're doing something right. I
think so, yeah. So not just mentoring people, face to face at shows or in matches, but you've been mentoring students directly as a wrestling school teacher. What is that brought to you, or working with brand new students or freshening people up who've had some training? What is your approach? What does it impact?
Well, it keeps me fresh, keeps me on my toes. Because you see a lot of kids that are breaking into the business and they're hungry as hell. They want to do everything they can to get into that ring, and you feel grateful for what you have and what you've accomplished, and you're like, damn, I remember feeling that way. And that's what kept me from retiring for so long, was I would look at these kids, they were coming up, and I would feel inspired by them the same way that I was inspiring them. And it keeps you humble, keeps you hungry, because you see how hungry and then you remember, like I remember when I first started the United Wrestling Network, my first day at Championship Wrestling Hollywood, I was like willing to do whatever it was to get onto the show. And then Dave Marquez walks up to me and says, "Congratulations, kid, your dream just came true." And that's a quote.
I can hear David saying that.
Yeah. And then I got on, and then you remember how hard you work to get on and stand out. And you know, and over the years I became complacent. And then when you have these kids that are trying to do what I did, and you then you give advice, like you tell them, you know what I did when I was younger and I was your age, when I broke in, this is what I did. And then they're like, oh man, that's such a great idea. And you're like, well, I got more if you need it. And it just kind of keeps going. And it's been so rewarding, you know, because I'm a head trainer at the Millennium Wrestling Academy. It's over in the Valley here in Southern California. And there's been so much, like having to learn how to be a teacher was one of the hardest things, because you're trying to figure out what's holding these students back, whether it be like some sort of physical limitation or the fact that there's maybe something that they're just not getting when it comes to giving or taking a move, or the psychology of a match, or how to put a match together, or how to build their body. And so you had to learn how to work around and weave through their difficulties and help them accomplish their goal, their end goal, which is to become a professional wrestler. And not everybody's the same. Not everybody learns at the same rate, and having to adjust the classes and the training so that everybody, no matter what level they are, can get a fulfilling workout and training class. it's been a real challenge, but it's something that I actually learned how to do and learned how to navigate. And it's been very rewarding, very fulfilling, because again, you're now you're seeing from the other side where you were trying to break through. You're trying to do everything you can. I had a support system in the beginning, but then towards the middle, I had to figure it out all on my own and learn all these things on the road. But now I can just give this knowledge to these students that I have, because I care about them and how well they do. And it's like, I didn't have that help when I was getting through the middle part, but I'm here to help you, and I'll help you any way that I can get better, get learned, because now they're an extension of me. They're part of the Ray Rosas legacy, the part of the Ray Rosas family tree. And when they go places and people go, oh wait, that kid is pretty good. Well, he was trained by Ray. And like, oh, that makes sense. That's probably the biggest compliment I can get.
Absolutely. And speaking of training, man, that poses the question for me is you see a lot of people come in and out of, all the various United Wrestling Network leagues. Who's your favorites today? Who do you look at and say, wow, okay, that guy's going to make it, or that gal's going to make it? Who are the top
out here in Southern California, out here?
Well, yeah, I mean, the guys that you're working with and the girls that you're working with, or yeah, I would say somebody that's on the show or around the show. Who would you say?
Because you got the Millennials are one of my favorite tag teams. They the Millennials. There's there's a lot of good kids, and I just had an open challenge, so I wrestled a bunch of them. There's Hunter Freeman. He's in San Diego. He's trained by B-Boy, trained with B-Boy. There's this tag team called 8-Bit Lit. They're really good. It's like excluding like Andy Brown and Adrian Quest, because those guys got it already. They're breakouts. There's Dom Kubrick. He's got a great character. He hasn't been on the program, but he's pretty good. Heather Monroe. I love Heather. She's
Killer Bay.
Really, yeah, she's a Killer Bay. Of course, there's like
Jake somewhere.
I'm sorry?
I think Heather will sign a contract somewhere at some point.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
There's one of my students that's been breaking out pretty good is Diego Valens. He's doing pretty good. I would like to see him on the program if he had, one of the things I got to get on. Max X, he was on the program. Caleb Perez was somebody that I was really excited about because he was trained. Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah. Well, he's been dealing with some health issues, and he'll be back pretty soon.
He made some great faces in his matches, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do. That's not just him being terrified.
Yeah, he was good. It was good for him.
He was in the first ever Championship Wrestling presented by Pro Shingle match against your guy Peter.
Yeah, and Peter's his head trainer. Peter's his original trainer, but I had a big hand in training Caleb too. So he was an official PP Ray product.
Wow.
That's why I was really bummed when he couldn't perform anymore. Hopefully he comes back. But there's a lot of great young talent on here that's still itching to break through, and I think if given the proper opportunity, they'll shine and they'll stand out. If with the proper guidance, of course.
Well, Ray, I hope that you're around to continue to mentor these people as they're going onto the United Wrestling Network for TV and beyond. So please, as much as we wish you success, please help us as much as you can.
Well, I wasn't going to completely step away. I think that was I think I probably would have stepped away for about a month or two, but I would have dived back in as a manager or an interviewer or as a backstage producer. I stayed involved somehow. I have been dabbling in writing shows for Millennium Pro Wrestling. But right now I'm just it's the world is my oyster. I was like, dang, when I'm done wrestling, I could pretty much do anything else. I was even like thinking about becoming a referee just to see how hard that was. Yeah.
Still can.
We've all done it at some point, for sure. Yeah. Sure, Nick could help you out with that. But man, you can't retire. You can't retire just yet. You can't hang up the boots just yet because you've got at least one more match. And I'm not talking about Watts or Clearwater or anything like that. Me and you've got to go one-on-one. Even if I have to fly out to Hollywood to make that happen, it's definitely going to happen. So you got to stick around at least until then.
Oh, you got it. Nothing would bring me more pleasure than to stick this right in your mush.
You'll have your opportunity, for sure.
Oh boy.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I think that's everything for today with Ray Rosas. Thank you, Ray, again for coming on with us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Ray, where can we catch you online?
I mean, I'm on Twitter, so it's at Ray Rosas, and I'm on Instagram, and that's at other Ray Rosas, because I was trying to get Ray Rosas on Instagram, but somebody else already grabbed it, so I'm the other Ray Rosas. I don't really do much in terms of. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been really lacking was producing more content. But I think now the United Wrestling Network's doing the job for me.
I was going to say, don't worry, we got your back. You're featured pretty much each and every week in Memphis on Championship Wrestling presented by Pro Shingle. And then, of course, on the YouTube page. I mean, you can find all sorts of Ray Rosas hits and misses on there all the time.
And you know what? As much as it pains me right now, hurts me real hard, real sad to say this, but you and Maria do a great job over there, and I commend you for it. I tip my imaginary cap. It hurts a lot to say it, but you guys do a really good job. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat it.
Say that again.
I think my mic, right.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Our goal is to help elevate not only the United Wrestling Network and all the affiliates, but then to elevate the wrestlers and the performers as well. And we want to have you guys out here. And yes, we have a vendetta going on, but that just makes it even that much sweeter. Like I said, so yeah, that will happen even if I have to fly out to Hollywood. And you know, we appreciate everybody's hard work. Nick, I mean, gosh, on the production side and everything else, you too, man. The whole team.
The unsung hero here, Nick.
Yeah,
I can edit this out. So that's fine. Well, thanks, Dustin. Again, where can we catch you? What's happening in your world?
Well, just give a follow over at CW30 Wrestling and catch up on YouTube. I think the important thing here is we have a live chat every Saturday at noon Central, and so we all watch the show. Anthony Idol, Todd Kinley. I think Nick, you've been on there. Gosh, Houston.
I was just on it last week.
Yeah, Ray was on there trolling the fans last week. They love that. So it's not. It's a really fun chat with some really great wrestling fans. And I know in some of these chats it gets a little crazy and there's all sorts of wild trolls and all that stuff. But these are diehard wrestling fans. You guys have a couple of minutes to swing into the chat. It's a whole lot of fun. That happens every Saturday. And then on our YouTube page, man, we have, just like United Wrestling Network is firing up, we've got new videos that are hitting every single day. So just follow us at CW30 Wrestling.
All right. For those watching, you can see our social media below. But for Twitter, it's at United Wrestling. Instagram, United Wrestling Network. YouTube.com/United Wrestling Network. And the same for Facebook, Facebook.com/United Wrestling Network. So thank you again for joining us, everyone. And a shout out to everyone who networks with United. Take care.
Shout out to the live chat, too.